If you told me 6 months ago that I'd be standing in a parking lot in Estes Park, Colorado, trying to figure out how to get back to a YMCA as fast as possible, I would not have believed you. YMCA feels like camping, and as I've explained, we don't camp. But a friend recommended YMCA of the Rockies, someone I trust, someone I knew wouldn't send me somewhere rustic, and we went. It wasn't deluxe, it wasn't glamorous, but it was clean, it was comfortable, and it was well worth what we paid, which was $183 for 2 nights and 6 meals for our family of 5. I want to tell you everything, the things we loved, the things we wished we'd known, and the decisions we made before we ever left Texas that made the whole trip worthwhile. So let's start from the beginning. We drove from our home in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, 12 hours with our 3 kids. And before we pulled out of our neighborhood, we knew exactly what we would be eating on our road trip. We had frozen water bottles in the big cooler in our truck bed. They are double duty because they are ice that keeps everything in the cooler cold, and then when they melt, we can drink them for the drive because we're traveling to higher altitudes and we needed as much water as we could possibly get. We refill our reusable waters when we get there, and we're set to go. Because the water bottles keep everything super cold, we can store food in there for our 2-day trip. Sliced cheese, carrots, pepperoni, salad, and then we put it in the smaller cooler in the truck so we can eat it as we drive. Snack bags in the back seat with crackers, protein bars, and each of my kids' favorite snacks. We stopped 3 times between our home and our first stop in Longmont, Colorado, not once for food or drinks. That's a decision that we make before every road trip. The cooler goes in before we leave the driveway, and ordering food on the road is just not something that we do. For a 12-hour drive with 5 people, that's somewhere between $80 or maybe $100 that we just didn't spend on food because we decided before we left instead of when we were tired and hungry and somewhere in New Mexico. We stayed our first night in Longmont at a Fairfield Suites for $140. I always look for nicer hotels, but outside of a downtown area. They're quieter, they're typically less expensive, and there's a breakfast included. We ate at the hotel the next morning, and we drove straight into Rocky Mountain National Park. We were about 55 minutes away from the entrance, and we had a 10 a.m. timed entry. This was day 1, and we did it the hard way, but I'll get to that in a minute. Real quick, if you're planning a trip like this and you want a simple way to set aside money for it without throwing off your regular budget, the free spreadsheet that I use is in the description. Click the link, drop in your email address, and it comes straight to your inbox. Okay, back to Colorado. So, the YMCA of the Rockies. It's not a hotel, it's not a campsite. It's a family retreat center sitting right at the edge of Rocky Mountain National Park. And if you've never heard of it, that's why I'm doing this video right now. We had a standard room, 2 queen beds, a table, some chairs, a dresser, a mini fridge for our snacks. It was clean, comfortable, and it was enough space for the 5 of us. It wasn't anything fancy, but nothing was missing. Here's something I want to make sure that you know. The YMCA of the Rockies has a program called Donor-Sponsored Getaways, and depending on who you are, your trip could be completely paid for or a percentage off the standard pricing. There are packages for teachers, active military families, faith leaders, foster families, single parent families, and families dealing with childhood illness. Some of those are 50% off lodging. Some include all meals. One is completely free. You have to call to book them. They can't be reserved online, but it is well worth a phone call to see if you qualify and see how much your trip would cost. We used the Faith Leader package, 2 nights, and all meals were included for our family of 5. We paid $183. And when you look at the cost of meals alone, dinner for our family would have been over $90 a night. 2 dinners, 2 breakfasts, and 2 lunches. 6 meals that were included for all 5 of us. At the standard pricing, that's over $450 in meals alone, and we paid $183 for lodging, activities, food, everything. Now I have to talk about the food because I had read online that it was terrible. multiple reviews, and I went in with the lowest expectations. We had just come off a week of church camp and ate normal camp food. So I expected the food at the YMCA of the Rockies to be standard camp food. What I actually found was a real salad bar at lunch and dinner, a solid hot breakfast every morning, and a soda fountain with Diet Coke. I had a fountain Diet Coke with every meal, and all 5 of us thought that the meal was great. So go in with low expectations and you'll be pleasantly surprised. Here are a few things that we especially enjoyed at our meals. Fresh salad with chickpeas and veggies, gluten-free quinoa with vegetables, mac and cheese, ribs, chicken fingers, and ice cream for dessert. We have some picky eaters in our family and we need gluten-free options and vegetables that my kids will actually eat and some healthy, decent options, and we were all thrilled. We had 0 complaints. Of course, it wasn't all sunshine and roses because there are some things about this trip that we figured out too late. And I really want you to have this information before you go. The first thing, the rooms are not air conditioned. Estes Park in the summer is beautiful and has really moderate temperatures, nothing like Texas. But our room never got below 75 degrees. We had the window open, we had fans running, it didn't matter. There wasn't a cross breeze. It's not a deal breaker, but if you run warm or you have kids that don't sleep well in the heat, bring a fan or just mentally prepare and plan for it to be a little warm. The second thing, and this is a big one, there is a trail from the YMCA property that connects directly into Rocky Mountain National Park. It literally ends right at the bus station for the free shuttle in the park. From that bus station, you can get basically anywhere in the park, no timed entry required, no parking. We didn't know this on day 1. On day 1, we drove in to our 10 a.m. timed entry to Bear Lake, and parking was a nightmare. We ended up driving around a parking lot and then taking 2 buses with 7 stops to get to where we actually wanted to be. We hiked Bear Lake and then over to Bierstadt Lake, and we loved it. But it was harder and more complicated than it needed to be because we didn't know this. There was more arguing and some wasted time than necessary, and we started the trip off frustrated and kind of on the wrong foot. Day 3 was our checkout morning, and we finally took the trail. It was easy. It was beautiful. We were not prepared for the beauty. The trail might have been the most beautiful hike of our entire trip. So here's my advice. Park at the YMCA and walk the trail, then get on a bus. Please don't wait to do this. Get on a bus and go to Bear Lake. One more thing worth knowing. Check out what groups are booked the same week you are. There was a large youth camp staying there while we were there. There were so many youth everywhere, crowding, noise, and the pool was basically unavailable during our stay. If you can find out what's booked when you're looking at dates, it's worth asking so that you're not inundated with 1,000 high schoolers. Speaking of the pool, it was only open in the evenings when we were there. My kids loved it, but there is a swim test requirement for kids under age 13 unless there is an adult in the water with them the whole time. Just go in knowing that there will be some rules and that the slide might not be running while you're there. The arts and crafts cabin was really impressive. We poked our heads in and kind of wandered around on the last day. We didn't have time to actually do anything. If you'd like to do arts and crafts, be sure to go early in your trip so you have time for it to dry and to be ready for you to take home with you. I wish there was some more information about the arts and crafts available and the time that it takes to do them. How to get started, we weren't really sure. There are costs for the arts and crafts, but it's really reasonable and it's a great souvenir. Our first full day in the park was wonderful. We got there before 8 a.m. and went straight to the alluvial fan. I cannot recommend this enough. It is beautiful, easy, and almost no one was there that early. It was highly underrated and beautiful. Another recommendation from our friend who recommended YMCA of the Rockies, and it became one of our family's favorite moments. After that, we drove up to the Alpine Visitor Center and we climbed to the top of the Alpine Trail. This is part of the park that we had done before 4 years ago when we'd visited, and so we kind of knew what to expect. We were really excited to do it again. It is a set of very steep steps, and the air is really thin because of the altitude, and it was a little harder on my children than we expected, but we got to the top and there was a herd of elk just right there, and everyone agreed that it was the highlight of the trip and it was worth every step. There are indoor bathrooms at the Alpine Visitor Center, but they were closed when we were there, which meant there was a line for the outdoor restrooms that was at least 20 people long the entire time we were there. We had no line, no gross bathrooms, because we packed disposable urine bags before we left for home. I know how it sounds, but I will never take a national park trip without them again. After the Alpine Visitor Center, we headed back down to the YMCA for lunch, which runs from 11 to 1. We rested for a bit and then we went into Estes Park for coffee and walking around checking out the town. We saw the Stanley Hotel, which was awesome. We watched elk wandering downtown and lounging in front of the library like they owned it. Because I think in Estes Park, the elk kind of do own everything. I think the elk in front of the library was my youngest son's favorite part of the whole trip. A few other things that made this trip really work for us. The Every Kid Outdoor Pass. If you have a 4th grader, go look this up right now. It's a free annual pass to all national parks and monuments for 4th grade students and their whole family. It takes about 5 minutes to answer some questions, and then you print out the pass and take it to the national park, and you will get a little card for your 4th grader for the whole year. Also, Guide Along. This is a GPS triggered audio tour app. We paid $17 for the Rocky Mountain National Park package, and as you drive through the park, it automatically plays narrated content based on exactly where you are at that moment. No stopping to read signs, no guessing if you're stopping at the right point or not, no guessing how long the path is actually going to be. We named our guide Ron, and Ron told us where to stop, what to stop for, what to skip, and what we were looking at. We used Ron every time we were in the park, and it was just $17, absolutely worth it. We have done this for several national park trips. Be sure to see if Guide Along has a package for your trip. One last practical note. Checkout at the YMCA of the Rockies is at 10 a.m., but we were able to stay all day and do activities, and lunch was still included. That meant our last morning felt like a bonus half day instead of like scrambling to get out as quickly as possible. We came home tired, like really tired, and my kids are already asking when we can go back. I have looked up the weather in Estes Park for various points of the year where we could go. This trip worked financially because we'd been putting money into a vacation bucket for months before we left. Not a lot every paycheck, just consistently, whenever we could, we set it and it automatically went into our vacation fund. When we got to Colorado, the budget was already done, and we weren't standing in Estes Park trying to figure out if we could afford coffee or an activity. We already knew every decision on this trip had been made before we ever left Texas. That is exactly what my free spreadsheet in the description does. It has a section specifically for setting aside money toward future things that you're planning for. So you're always in control of where your money is going. Click the link in the description, put in your email address, and it will come straight to your inbox. And in my next video, I'm going to show you exactly what the rest of our Colorado trip looked like. Colorado Springs, Garden of the Gods, Pikes Peak, and a birthday at 14,115 feet. And I'll tell you what the entire trip cost 6 days for the 5 of us. That video is right here.